A group of bikers target a young girl walking home alone, unaware that her loyal dog is a highly trained K9. When they try to intimidate her, the dog springs into action, using expert skills to take them down one by one. Caught off guard and overpowered, the bikers quickly realize they picked the wrong target. As the dust settles, the truth about the dog's past as a police K9 is revealed, leaving everyone in shock. This story proves that true protection comes in unexpected forms. A group of bikers thought they had found an easy target, a little girl walking home alone, but they had no idea what was waiting for them. The afternoon sun cast long shadows along the quiet suburban street as 11-year-old Emily Carter walked home from school. At her side trotted Max, her loyal German shepherd, his ears alert, his steady gaze scanning their surroundings. To Emily, it was just another normal day, but someone was watching. 3 loud motorcycles rumbled behind her, slowing down as they neared. The riders exchanged looks, smirking. She was small, alone, an easy target. Or so they thought. What seemed like an ordinary afternoon was about to turn into a nightmare. But when the bikers made their move, they learned a lesson they would never forget. Have you ever seen an animal protect its owner in an unbelievable way? Tell us in the comments, because this wasn't just any dog. Max was a retired K9 police dog, trained for situations exactly like this. And when his instincts kicked in, the bikers never stood a chance. The late afternoon sun bathed the quiet suburban street in a warm glow as 11-year-old Emily Carter walked home from school. She was small for her age, but she had never been the type to be easily scared. With her backpack slung over one shoulder, she hummed softly to herself, her sneakers scuffing lightly against the pavement. Beside her trotted Max, her faithful German shepherd, his head held high, his dark eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. To most people, Max seemed like an ordinary pet, a big, well-trained dog that adored his owner. But Emily's father, a former police officer, had told her once that Max was special. Emily never really understood what he meant until today. The neighborhood was peaceful, lined with trees and the occasional parked car. Most houses were quiet, their owners still at work or finishing their day inside. The only sound was the soft rustling of leaves and the rhythmic click of Max's nails on the pavement. Then a new sound broke the stillness. The deep roar of motorcycles echoed down the street. It wasn't unusual. Bikers passed through all the time, but this time, the sound didn't fade away. It grew louder, closer. Max's ears twitched. His head snapped up, his posture going rigid. His keen senses had picked up something Emily hadn't noticed yet. A few yards behind them, 3 motorcycles slowed down, their riders watching. Emily, still unaware, kept walking. But Max's body was now tense, his tail stiff, his breathing slow and controlled. The 3 bikers were dressed in black, their leather jackets scuffed and worn. They looked like they had no business being in a quiet neighborhood like this. The leader, Troy, a tall, rugged man with a scar running down his cheek, smirked beneath his helmet. He nudged the guy next to him, gesturing toward Emily. "Easy target," he muttered. The second biker, a lanky man with a cigarette dangling from his lips, chuckled. "Just a kid and a mutt," he sneered. They sped up slightly, closing the distance. Max's muscles coiled, his head turning slightly, tracking their every movement. His training had been ingrained in him for years. He recognized a threat before it even fully materialized. Emily, completely unaware of the danger approaching, kept walking, humming a tune, swinging her backpack as if nothing was wrong. But something was very, very wrong, and Max knew it. The bikers didn't realize it yet, but they were about to make a terrible mistake. The deep rumble of motorcycles sent a shiver down Emily's spine as they slowed beside her, their engines growling like restless beasts. She clutched Max's leash tighter, her fingers gripping the rough fabric as unease crept into her chest. One of the bikers, a lanky man with greasy hair and a cigarette dangling from his lips, let out a low chuckle. "Awfully late for a little girl to be walking alone," he sneered. Emily ignored him and quickened her pace, her heart pounding. Another biker with tattoos covering his arms smirked as he leaned forward on his handlebars. "Nice dog," he said, his voice laced with mockery. "Think he'd fetch if we threw something?" She didn't answer, but Max did. His ears stood erect, his dark eyes locked onto the men like a predator watching prey. His body remained still, but every muscle in him coiled like a tightly wound spring. Then, suddenly, the leader of the group, Troy, swung his bike in front of her, cutting off her path. Emily's breath hitched. Troy swung one leg off his motorcycle, his scuffed black boots crunching against the pavement as he stepped toward her. His leather jacket was faded, the scar running down his cheek making his sneer look even more menacing. "Where you headed, sweetheart?" he drawled, blocking her way. Emily tried to step back, but before she could move, one of the bikers grabbed Max's leash, yanking it with a firm tug. Bad move. Max didn't budge. His feet remained planted, his body rock solid, his gaze unblinking. A low, dangerous growl rumbled deep in his throat, a warning that went entirely unnoticed by the man gripping the leash. Emily's chest tightened. Every nerve in her body screamed for her to run, but before she could react, Troy grabbed her backpack from behind and jerked her back toward him. Emily let out a small cry, her pulse hammering as she struggled to free herself. "Hey!" she shouted, twisting against his grip, but Troy only laughed, tightening his hold. "You don't gotta be scared," he grinned. "We're just saying, hello?" Max's growl grew louder. His ears pinned back, his stance shifted, and his tail went rigid. Emily felt her panic spike. She only had one option. Her father had told her one thing about Max that she would never forget. "If you're ever in trouble, Emily, say his name. Give him a command. He'll know what to do." She squeezed her eyes shut and shouted the only thing that came to her mind. "Max, help!" Everything happened at once. The bikers didn't realize it yet, but they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. The moment the command left Emily's lips, Max sprang into action. The biker holding her backpack barely had time to react before Max lunged forward, his powerful body colliding with the man like a bullet of muscle and fur. The force sent the biker crashing to the ground, his arms flailing as he struggled to break his fall. Then came the real pain. Max's jaws clamped down on his wrist, his sharp teeth sinking in just enough to immobilize him. The biker let out a blood-curdling scream, his body jerking violently as he tried to shake the dog off, but Max wasn't letting go. His growl was low, dangerous, unrelenting, a sound that sent primal fear through anyone who heard it. The second biker, the one who had tried to grab Max's leash earlier, panicked. "Get him off!" he yelled, raising his boot to kick Max away. Big mistake. The moment his leg swung toward Max, the dog released the first biker, dodging the incoming kick with shocking speed. In a blink, he whipped around and latched onto the second biker's calf, his weight dragging the man backward as he fell to the pavement with a hard thud. The bikers were no longer laughing. Troy, the leader, had watched it all unfold with growing rage. His scarred face twisted in fury, and without hesitation he reached into his jacket and pulled out a knife. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Max held his position, growling so fiercely that his entire body vibrated with intensity. His eyes locked onto the blade, ready to react. Troy took a step forward. "Call him off. Now." His voice was sharp, but there was a tremor beneath the threat. Emily's hands trembled, but something inside her had changed. She wasn't helpless anymore. She remembered what her father had always told her. If Max ever gets serious, step back and let him handle it. She lifted her chin and took a step back. "Max, down," she commanded, her voice firm. Instantly, Max released the biker's leg, stepping back with precision, his eyes never leaving the threat in front of him. He stood next to Emily, his posture still tense, ready to strike again if needed. The bikers scrambled to their feet, their bodies shaking. Their leader still held the knife, but now it was clear he didn't know what to do with it. Max hadn't just attacked them, he had controlled them. Troy's fingers tightened around the hilt of the knife. His pride was at stake. He had been humiliated, taken down by a kid and her dog. But before he could make another move, the deep roar of a car engine filled the air. Emily whipped her head around just in time to see a black SUV pull up to the curb. The driver's door swung open. A tall, broad-shouldered man stepped out, his police badge flashing in the fading sunlight. Emily's father. Troy's face drained of color. The knife in his grip shook slightly as recognition set in. "You're making a huge mistake," Emily's father said, his voice calm but filled with warning. His gaze swept over the scene, the bikers, the fear in their eyes, and Max, standing, protectively beside his daughter. Troy's breath hitched. For the first time he looked scared. His hand loosened on the knife. His shoulders slumped slightly. And then, without another word, he dropped the blade onto the pavement and bolted. His gang hesitated only for a second before following him, limping and cursing as they ran toward their motorcycles. They had come into this believing they were predators. Now they realized they had been the prey all along. The roar of the bikers' motorcycles faded into the distance, but Emily's heart was still racing. She could feel her pulse thudding in her ears as she watched the last two bikers, still shaken and injured, being handcuffed by police officers who had arrived moments after her father. Max sat beside her, his body relaxed now, but his sharp eyes remained on the scene, still scanning for threats. It was as if he hadn't just taken down two full-grown men in seconds, as if this were just another day, another routine. Emily's father stepped toward her, his gaze filled with something between pride and concern. He kneeled beside her, resting, a firm but gentle hand on her shoulder. "You okay, kiddo?" he asked softly. Emily nodded, finally catching her breath. "I think so," she murmured, then looked at Max. "But I don't think I would be if it weren't for him." Her father exhaled, looking at Max the same way someone might look at an old friend. "That's because Max isn't just any dog," he said. Emily frowned slightly, confusion flickering in her eyes. "I know that," she said. "But I don't think I ever really understood how special he is. Not until today." Her father nodded. "Max used to be my canine partner. he explained. "Back when I was on the force." His eyes softened as he reached out to scratch behind Max's ears, a touch filled with familiarity and gratitude. "We went through years of training together, and we saw some pretty rough situations. But through everything, Max was always there, loyal, fearless, and ready to protect." Emily's eyes widened. "He was a police dog?" Her father chuckled. "Not just any police dog, one of the best." She stared at Max, who sat calmly at her side, his tail flicking once. She had always thought of him as her best friend, her protector. But now she was realizing that he was something so much more. She reached out, running her fingers through his thick fur. "I didn't know," she whispered. Her father smiled. "He was trained to take down criminals, track missing people, detect danger before it even happened," he continued. "And even though he's retired, those instincts, they never go away." Emily felt a new wave of respect wash over her as she looked into Max's deep, intelligent eyes. He had always been watching over her, always making sure she was safe. She had just never realized how capable he truly was. "He saved my life," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Max let out a small huff, almost as if he understood, and nudged her hand with his nose. Emily smiled softly, then threw her arms around his neck, hugging him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. Max didn't need to say anything. He had always been there for her, and he always would be. Nearby, the two remaining bikers groaned in pain as the officer secured them in the back of a police car. Troy, however, was still on the run. But he wouldn't forget this night. He had learned a valuable lesson. One that he wouldn't soon forget. Never underestimate a little girl. And never, ever mess with her dog. News of the brave K9 dog who defended a little girl from an attack spread quickly. Local newspapers ran headlines like, "Retired Police Dog," "Stops Attack on Young Girl," and "Heroic K9, Protects Owner from Dangerous Bikers." Social media was flooded with comments. Some people in awe of Max's instincts, others furious that such an incident had even happened in their quiet town. Emily couldn't believe how quickly everything changed. People who once saw her as just a small girl with a big dog now looked at her with admiration. Max had been her best friend her whole life, but now everyone else saw what she had always known. He was a hero. At school, her classmates kept asking about what happened. "Was Max really trained to take down bad guys?" one boy asked, eyes wide. "Did he actually bite them?" another girl whispered. Emily simply smiled, patting Max's head as he sat by her side, calm as ever. "Max only does what he has to do." For the first time, Emily realized something important. She wasn't just some helpless little girl. She had a protector, a friend, and now a newfound strength within herself. The entire town had learned an important lesson. People were more aware now, more careful. It wasn't just about crime. It was about understanding that threats aren't always obvious, that some people and animals are more capable than they seem. No one underestimated Emily anymore, and no one dared to underestimate Max. One evening, as Emily sat on the porch watching the sunset with Max curled up beside her, she heard the familiar sound of her father's truck pulling into the driveway. Her dad stepped out, his usual serious expression replaced with a rare, soft smile. He walked over, crouching beside them, running his hand over Max's fur like he had done 1,000 times before. "You did good, buddy," he murmured, his voice filled with pride. Emily watched as Max wagged his tail slightly, responding to the warmth in her father's tone. Her dad looked at her next, his eyes filled with something that Emily didn't quite understand yet. Pride, relief, maybe even a little bit of awe. "You? No," he said, sitting beside her on the porch steps. "Max was my partner for a long time. I trusted him with my life." He glanced at her, his gaze softening. "And now, looks like he's found someone new to protect." Emily smiled, looking at Max, who lifted his head slightly, as if he understood every word. "He always has," she said simply, running her fingers through his fur. Her father nodded. "Yeah, and he always will." The three of them sat in comfortable silence, the night settling in, the air cool and peaceful. Emily knew that things had changed, but one thing never would. Max would always be by her side, and as long as he was there, she had nothing to fear. Bravery doesn't come from size or strength. It comes from heart, and sometimes the fiercest protectors come in the most unexpected forms. Max wasn't just a dog. He was a guardian, a hero, and a reminder that courage and loyalty will always triumph over fear. This story proves that true protection isn't about power. It's about love, trust, and the unbreakable bond between a protector and the one they love. Have you ever seen an animal protect its owner in an incredible way? We'd love to hear your stories. Share them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thrilling, real-life inspired stories that remind us of the strength of loyalty and the power of courage. Until next time, remember, never judge a book by its cover or a dog by its leash.